Today, I'm ranking Carrie Bradshaw's 4 most important relationships, from the worst boyfriend to the best boyfriend. And before anyone gets mad at me, this ranking is not about who Carrie had the most chemistry with. I'm looking at who actually treated Carrie the best, who was the most emotionally mature, and who was the most toxic. And while rewatching this series, I couldn't help but wonder, how many of Carrie's relationship problems came from the men she dated? And how many came from the fact that she kept confusing chemistry with compatibility? Let's get into it. Number 4. Jack Berger. I have to be honest, the second I heard his name was Berger, I knew this wasn't going anywhere. Maybe it's because Carrie and Berger sounds more like something you'd order for lunch than an epic love story.
So how's it going with that guy, Hot Dog?
Berger.
At first, Berger seems great. He's funny, charming, witty, and he understands Carrie's humor better than most of the men she dates. But the more we get to know him, the more obvious it becomes that this man needs therapy more than he needs a girlfriend. One of the first red flags is that he's flirting with Carrie while he's still involved with another woman. Then when that relationship ends, it's clear he's not over it.
I want to talk to you.
Fuck you and fuck you! Bye-bye.
Well, that's definitely a red flag. Every time he talks about his ex, he's carrying around so much anger and resentment that it feels like he's still fighting with her in his head. And that's kind of Berger's biggest problem. He's emotionally dysregulated. Whenever something goes wrong in his life, he takes it out on the people around him. The moment his writing career starts struggling while Carrie's career is thriving, he becomes incredibly insecure. Instead of being happy for her, he starts treating her success like it's a personal attack. The motorcycle scene drives me crazy every single time. Sir, you know she's dressed for an event. You know she's wearing an outfit that is completely impractical for a motorcycle. But somehow, we're getting on it anyway because Berger needs to feel cool and masculine for 5 minutes. Then there's the parsley argument. Carrie says she's allergic to parsley because restaurants tend to take allergies more seriously than preferences. People do this all the time. It's not a federal crime. But Berger turns it into an issue because once again, he's already upset about something else. Everything with him becomes bigger than it needs to be. He also has this tendency to put himself down constantly while somehow making everyone else responsible for his problems. It's exhausting. And then, of course, we get the Post-it note breakup, one of the worst breakups in television history. And what makes it even worse is that they were already on a break. Why come back, spend the night together, and then leave a Post-it note the next morning? At that point, just stay broken up. The whole thing feels immature, cowardly, and completely unfair to Carrie. But still, the biggest issue with Berger isn't that he's a bad person. It's that he's deeply insecure, lacks self-awareness, and makes his insecurities everyone else's problem. Which is why he's number 4. Number 3. Mr. Big. I know some people are already typing angry comments, and I know that whenever people defend Big, the argument is almost always the same. But they had chemistry. And yes, they absolutely did. Carrie and Big had incredible chemistry. But chemistry and compatibility are not the same thing. My problem with Big is that he spent years giving Carrie mixed signals. When she wanted commitment, he pulled away. When she started moving on, he often found a way back into her life. It became a cycle. And unlike Berger, who hurt Carrie intensely over a relatively short period of time, Big hurt Carrie over many years. Watching their relationship feels like watching someone repeatedly touch a hot stove and then act surprised when they get burned. I also couldn't help but wonder, if Big was an average guy, instead of being the handsome and successful Mr. Big, would so many people still be defending him? Because if we take away the charisma and the chemistry, what we're left with is a man who struggled to give Carrie the commitment she was asking for. A moment that always stuck with me is when he tells Carrie he's moving to Paris. Actually, tells isn't even the right word. He'd already made the decision. The job was accepted, the move was planned, and Carrie was only finding out after everything had already been decided. If you really see someone as your future, wouldn't they be one of the first people you talk to before making a decision like that? Instead, Carrie realizes she isn't part of the decision-making process at all. Big doesn't ask her what she thinks. He doesn't ask what this means for their relationship. He doesn't try to come up with a plan together. He simply expects her to accept that this is what's happening. To me, that says everything about where Carrie stood. She was always trying to fit into his life, while he rarely made space for her in his. And then there's the affair. He cheats on his wife with Carrie, which tells us a lot about how he approaches relationships. And I know the show ultimately presents Big as Carrie's great love story, but I never completely bought into that. Another reason is that I've never been convinced Carrie was actually the kind of partner Big wanted. When you look at the women he seemed drawn to, they were often more traditional, more polished, and fit more naturally into the world he had built for himself. Carrie was different. That's part of what made their relationship exciting, but it's also part of what made it so unstable. I never felt like Carrie was truly his first choice in the way that Aidan or Petrovsky chose her. I just think they were in love with the idea of each other rather than the reality of each other. For years, she wanted a version of him that didn't exist, and he never seemed completely sure that she was the person he wanted to build a life with. The man even left her at the altar. At that point, they had known each other for years. They had broken up, gotten back together, and gone through every possible relationship obstacle. They were literally planning a wedding, and he still wasn't sure. For me, that says everything. Now, I know some of you are probably thinking, yeah, but he came back, and that's true, he did, but that doesn't erase what happened. Why put someone you supposedly love through something like that in the first place? It was so humiliating. Once someone embarrasses you and breaks your trust on that level, I don't know how you come back from it. Maybe the relationship was never as solid as people like to believe. That's why, despite all the chemistry, I've never seen them as a truly compatible couple. And that's why Big lands at number 3. Number 2, Aleksandr Petrovsky. I think Petrovsky is one of the most misunderstood characters in the entire series. Compared to some of Carrie's other boyfriends, he was refreshingly straightforward. He told her who he was, and he told her what he wanted. And when he wanted a future with her, he actually invited her to be part of it, which, by the way, is something Carrie had wanted from Big for years. Petrovsky was intelligent, artistic, charismatic, romantic, and emotionally mature. One thing I appreciate about him is that there were very few games. What you saw was what you got. I also think a lot of people overlook the fact that he probably assumed Carrie would build her own life in Paris, the same way she had built one in New York. She was a successful writer. She had her own career. She had her own identity. Meanwhile, Carrie seemed to expect him to become the center of her world once they arrived in Paris. And that's where I think a lot of the incompatibility came from. Both of them had expectations that didn't match reality. The timing also couldn't have been worse. Petrovsky was preparing for one of the biggest exhibitions of his career after years of work. He was stressed, distracted, and completely focused on it. Does that excuse every mistake he made? No, but I think it explains some of them. The moment that really illustrates this is when Petrovsky asks her to come with him to his exhibition because he's nervous and wants her support. He's about to present years of work, he's anxious, and he wants his girlfriend there with him. The thing is, Carrie already had plans that evening. Some fans of her book wanted to take her out to dinner, but she decided to go with Petrovsky first because she knew how important that night was to him. And this is where I know I'm probably going to disagree with a lot of people. What exactly did Carrie expect? Did she expect to be the center of attention at his exhibition? The second I saw that he was busy and everything was going well, I would have just said, okay, you've got this. Have fun, good luck, and gone to dinner with my fans. Instead, she just sits there looking miserable. She doesn't even go around to see the exhibition. She's basically waiting for Petrovsky to stop talking to critics and entertain her. Girl, just go look at the art or go to dinner with the people who literally invited you because they're excited to meet you. To me, this is one of the few moments where Carrie falls into a victim mindset. I don't really see this scene as proof that Petrovsky was a terrible boyfriend. I see it as a boyfriend asking for support on one of the biggest nights of his career. Then there's this scene everyone remembers. The accidental slap.
Please, Carrie.
Obviously, it's a terrible moment. Carrie is shocked, and anyone would be. But every time I watch that scene, I can't help but feel like I'm watching the writers force the story toward a specific ending. Because throughout their relationship, Petrovsky is portrayed as self-absorbed, distracted, and work-focused. But physically abusive? That never felt consistent with the character we'd been watching. To me, it reads as an accident during a chaotic moment, rather than an intentional act of violence. If the writers already knew Carrie and Big were going to end up together, did they make Petrovsky worse at the very end to make that outcome easier to justify? Whether you agree with me or not, I still think Petrovsky's biggest issue wasn't toxicity. It was incompatibility. And that's why he takes the number 2 spot. Number 1. Aidan Shaw. This one wasn't difficult for me. Aidan was the best boyfriend Carrie ever had. He was honest and emotionally available, clear about what he wanted from a relationship. Unlike many of Carrie's other boyfriends, he was looking for commitment and a real future together. Everything Carrie wanted Big to do, Aidan was already doing. One of the most frustrating things about rewatching the series is watching Aidan try to do something nice for Carrie, only for her to act like it's the end of the world. The computer scene is a perfect example. Her computer crashes. He buys her a new one because he wants to help. That's it. That's literally all he's trying to do. And somehow, Carrie gets annoyed. Meanwhile, if Big had shown up with the exact same computer, Carrie probably would have written 3 columns about how romantic it was. Now, before the Aidan fans start celebrating, I don't think he was perfect. One thing I didn't like was how he handled some of his feelings after Carrie cheated on him. And to be fair, I understand why. Being cheated on destroys trust. But there are moments where it's obvious that Aidan isn't over what happened. The bartender situation is one example. He clearly enjoys making Carrie a little jealous. Did he cheat? No. But it feels like he's looking for validation after being hurt. The nicotine patch incident is another example. Carrie makes a joke about how she's doing much better this time and that she's not cheating. Obviously, she's talking about smoking, but the word cheating immediately brings up what happened between them. Aidan reacts by slapping the patch onto her much harder than he needed to. It's a pretty passive-aggressive moment, and it shows that he's still carrying resentment. That's actually why I sometimes think Aidan shouldn't have taken Carrie back in the first place. Because although he forgave her, I don't think he ever fully trusted her again. And once trust is gone, rebuilding it is incredibly difficult. There's also something from the movies that always stood out to me. Even years after their relationship ended, I don't think he ever completely got over Carrie. He's married, he has a family, and yet he still ends up kissing her. For me, that's actually very similar to the way Carrie behaved with Big when she was with Aidan. Neither of them could fully let go of a relationship from the past. I don't think it makes Aidan a bad person, but it does show that even he wasn't perfect when it came to relationships. But here's the difference. When I look at Aidan's flaws, I don't see someone who was playing games, manipulating Carrie, or keeping her around whenever it was convenient. I see someone who got hurt, never completely moved on, and sometimes made bad decisions because of it. Berger's insecurity was there from the beginning. Big's emotional unavailability was there from the beginning. Petrovsky's career and lifestyle often came before the relationship. Aidan's biggest problem was that he kept holding on when he probably should have let go. And even with those flaws, he was still the most emotionally available and committed boyfriend Carrie ever had. I think that Aidan was the boyfriend Carrie needed, not the boyfriend she wanted. She was looking for excitement. She was looking for her so-called Zazazoo. And maybe that's why she never fully appreciated what she had with him. And that's why Aidan and Carrie never worked. Not because he wasn't enough, but because Carrie wanted the excitement that came with uncertainty. For me, Aidan was still the most emotionally available, committed, and supportive boyfriend she ever had. And that's why he takes the #1 spot. And now I want to hear from you. Do you agree with my ranking? Let me know in the comments. I'd love to know which of Carrie's relationships was your favorite and which boyfriend you think was the most toxic. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to like, subscribe, and turn on notifications so you don't miss the next one. Thank you so much for watching.